I'm watching it on my tablet to see if that's doing, if it's recording. Well, I'm trying to plug in my power to make sure I don't run out of power. Yep, looks like it is recording. Good. So this will be interesting because I'm shooting from the good camera on the mobile phone, because today we're mobile. We're going to be moving around. We're going to be looking at the quail. We'll be in the greenhouse. We'll be looking at everything that's going on in here. And so I'm not quite sure how I'll do this. Hopefully I just watch it here on my tablet. But anyway, so I'm going to kind of give you a tour, give you an update. First of all, I'm David Gilmore, known as the LDS Prepper. You can find my YouTube channel at ldsprepper.com. And if you want to get the Mittladder Gardening Course book, which we'll talk about more today, or the premium LDS Prepper micronutrient mix for your plant food, go to ldsprepperstore.com. All right, so now that we have that out of the way, those are very important. We'll talk about those here later. But today we're mobile, so I will be giving you a walkthrough. When this presentation is over, I actually have another large group coming over, and this happens quite often. We'll have 15, 20, 30 people here going to the greenhouse and looking at the preparedness and how we live off grid and so forth. And so I know that you can't be here. Not everybody can be here. And so I'm going to try to do the same thing for you. So what is important is that when you have a question, please post it in the chat live, because after I kind of give you the tour, I'm going to come back and look at my tablet and see what questions are there, so I can respond to your questions. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm very, very excited. This is the 6th year, the 5th winter that we have grown in the geothermal greenhouse, the DIY geothermal greenhouse, the one that I designed and built out of PVC. And it did fabulously well, extremely well. I harvested red potatoes, which I had for breakfast yesterday. We have carrots growing in there. Our kale was literally 8 feet tall. I had to finally take it out. It had gone to seed, and we had taken that out. But everything grew really, really well. The Swiss chard, the strawberries, everything through winter. So by the first winter, that wasn't the case. I had to learn what was working and what wasn't working. And so it took me about a year to figure out how much insulation I needed and what the airflow was on the geothermal and so forth. But you can totally grow food, even tomatoes, year-round here in southeast Idaho, Zone 5A, with a geothermal greenhouse built the way that I built it. Now, I've been to a lot of other geothermal greenhouses for 4, 5, 6 times the cost. Let's see, 10, yeah, almost 10 times the cost, or they can't grow like I do. I'm not an engineer, not a smart guy, but I'm a practical guy. I look for a return on investment, and I make things work on things until they work. Okay, so that's just kind of who I am. But anyway, so the geothermal greenhouse worked fabulously well. If you haven't seen my geothermal greenhouse playlist, go to ldsprepper.com and click on the playlist and look at the geothermal playlist there. Really how to build everything and the 2 different methods I've used. And after 5 years of growing, I have my recommendations on exactly how much pipe you should use and how deep you need to go. And it's a lot easier, it's a lot faster, it's a lot less expensive than it was initially when I was first learning this. Okay, so we are in my garage right now. It's an uninsulated garage. We've got a bunch of cabinets in here. My wife just had some flooring taken out, and she's got tile laid, and she got new cabinets putting in. So lots going on in here. This is also my workstation where I actually mix the LDS Prepper Premium micronutrient mixes. So that's where I'm actually broadcasting from, is on the table here. We've got stacks of them over there, and we've got the 2,000-pound bin of micronutrients here, and we weigh everything out and bag it here. But probably what you're interested in is the quail. So let's just take a look at the quail. These quail we replaced here shortly, and if you have any questions about quail, just put them in the comment section. But these quail are not quite a year old, but they're getting there, and so they will be replaced with the new hatch that I have. And here's the quail here on top, and the cages that I built. These cages are designed so that when the quail lay the egg, it just kind of rolls out to the front. You can see the cage is square, but it's at an angle. You see that angle there, and then the eggs just kind of roll out right to here, and I just come over and harvest the eggs. I feed them through here. This works really well. This is just a drain pipe or some kind of tubing from the big box store. And then I've got the same kind of wire that I made the cage out of, so they can't flick food around as much. But anyway, I need to show you the Easter eggs that I made. I know that my wife is listening because she's my tech support today. So, honey, if you could bring the colored Easter eggs out and put them on the table out here in the garage, that'd be great. Okay, so let's take a look at what they get fed. This is the layer feed. It's important that they have high protein. Hopefully you can see that this has a high calcium mix. So calcium is 4.8%. That's important that we have that for the layers, okay? But when they're chicks, well, we want to make sure that they have high protein, because that's when the bodies are growing. So we have a high 28% protein mix right here. All right, so let's come over here and take a look at the chicks. These are now, I guess, 3 weeks old, and they are in here. They were hatched, I think it's 3 weeks ago, and they are doing really, really well. They're probably tripling or more in size every week, and they are very, very healthy, very happy. I got them underneath 125 watt light. It's a little chilly this morning, so I'm going to put the covers on. Oh, let's see. I need to put my phone. I don't know if I can do that. I need to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. So, can I do that so I don't get noises here? Do Not Disturb. Okay, very good. All right, so there are the quail. They're doing great. I cannot tell the sex of them until they're about 3-4 weeks old. So I usually check around 5 weeks just so I'm not guessing. At any rate, so that's the quail. This is their little house here. They're doing great. I did make a modification on the feeder. I should show you. Here on the water, make sure that you have the very small lip, not the big lip. Otherwise, they will drown when they're very small. But let me just put this down and show you a modification I made that made a big difference. So they were really getting a lot of food spilled inside of the brood box here, and so I hope you can see this. Inside, you can see a little piece of cardboard in here, and so I just have some cardboard going up inside this bottle, and this extends basically the neck of the bottle, so that the food only when it comes out, it stops at that point. And that keeps enough food in here for them to eat, but not so much that this whole thing fills up, and then they just make a big mess. So, little piece of cardboard inside of here. It looks like it's about 3/4 of an inch past the lip. So the cardboard's probably about that tall, and it's sticking up inside there. And that has saved a lot on wasting food. So, thought I'd pass that on to you. all the other quail are sold. This will go back to replacing my flock. Okay, so much for that. And we're going to walk out to the greenhouse. The main reason why my wife is watching the live stream. So we have two greenhouses here. The one on the left is the one that we'll be going into today. I don't have anything growing in there. All the trees died, so I'll be replacing those. When I have trees in there, we'll go into there. Changing from winter to spring mode. So what did I in the winter? I was my red potatoes in here, which did very, very well. I've just got a few left, and we won't be growing anything in this 30-foot box this year. We grow what she processes, so I appreciate all that she does and don't want to overwork her, but I don't want to waste food, and I'm certainly not growing food to give away or to sell, so we just grow what we eat. Right here in the center of the greenhouse, these are growing areas inside of here, and 30-foot long boxes. And we've got garlic. My wife planted garlic last fall, and they come up on top. That's how you grow garlic through the winter outside, to insulate it. Not necessary here in the greenhouse, but that was her thought, was that she'd...
Getting a lot of buffering and pixelated video.
Oh, okay. My wife says we're getting a lot of buffering and pixelated video. So, oh, how do I show you this? Maybe if I just move kind of slowly, you can see what's going on. Hopefully that's better. But anyway, the garlic is doing great. We are going to be planting artichokes this year. Let me know. Oh, I can't see here. So anyway, these artichokes over here will be for the carrots. The carrots have grown very, very well. And I will just give you an example of a carrot here that grew through winter in southeast Idaho. Okay. So these are supposed to be thick, short carrots. That looks awesome. We've got another carrot here. And that's quite a carrot. Yep, that is, wow. One beefy, beefy carrot. Nice thing about carrots, growing them through the winter, is that you can eat them all the way through winter. You just come out here, grab some, throw them in a stew, maybe with some elk meat or something, and enjoy the carrots. So hopefully by moving slower, you're getting less buffering. But anyway, can you grow food in winter in Idaho? Yes, in a geothermal greenhouse. Look at those carrots. And just kind of give you an idea how big that carrot is and how thick that is. That's amazing. All right, so the Swiss chard grew exceptionally well also. Grew that all the way through winter. And we have been feeding that to the quail and to the chickens. So that has worked out really well. Over here, I have planted earlier this week, actually 2 days ago, the start of our spring garden. So these are all vertical plants here, vining plants. Some of them are vining, but they're all, we'll grow them all vertically. And we have them on the north side of the greenhouse, so they don't shadow anything behind them. Again, we're not going to be growing anything back here. So the first thing we have here is yellow doll watermelon. It was planted 2 days ago, and it should be harvesting on the 17th or whatever that is. So April, May, June 17th is when it's on the label. It said it would be harvested. And then 9 inches next to that, we've got early dew Mountain Dew melon planted 2 days ago, and that should harvest. Showing that the honeydew will harvest in 3 months and the watermelon will harvest in 2 months. That's interesting. We'll see how that goes. I do like to get these labels stapled down and drawn in pencil. The pencil does not fade, and stapling down here keeps it from losing, being blown away. A lot of people will ask, well, what are you growing? And if you don't have it labeled, you can't tell them. Also, if you really like that variety, you don't remember what it is at the end of the season, you won't be able to get, or get the same thing. So we like labeling everything. I like putting the plant date and the estimated harvest date. I think in Idaho things grow slower because we don't have as much intense sunlight, for example, like in San Diego. So they don't have as much energy as the plants growing in San Diego, Arizona, closer to the equator. But anyway, so these are growing vertically. So you can see I have the twine already set up here, and I've got this very simple, very effective way to tie up the plants. My wife is quite a bit shorter than I am, and so she has a hard time reaching all the way up to the top of that 7-foot beam there to tie the twine. So I came up with this idea, I think it was last year, and this is very straightforward. This is just this is a 4.5-inch long, but I'd probably make them 5 or 6 inches long. This is just a piece of bamboo, so it's pennies, if that. I just cut them, and I just tie a clove hitch on one end and just wrap it there, and then as the plant comes up, we can just adjust this. Makes it very easy. It never gets out of her height, so that has worked really, really well. So this is all staged, ready for planting as the plants grow. Next to the honeydew, we've got some musk melon, 2 musk melon plants over here. And over here we have our all-time favorite sun sugar cherry tomato, and this shows that it will be harvesting here in 2 months also. And so you'll be able to see how these are growing throughout the spring and summer here. And then we have space here for squashes and some more tomato plants. My wife really likes the tomatoes that I forget what they're called. They don't get too big and they're not too small, and they're great for slicing and putting on in salads. So anyway, we got space left here. You can see I already have it marked out. We'll talk about that here in a minute. And then we've got the same plants over here, kind of duplicating the garden. What we have here in the center is a dehumidifier. Again, any questions about planting, transplanting, seedlings, anything like that, feel free to comment, question in the comment section. We have a dehumidifier. I bought this one online. It's no particular brand or anything to me. This happens to be an Arctic King. But we get about 5 to 10 gallons of water during the winter out of the air each night. And so it just comes down here into the, I think this is a 30-gallon drum. And this works great because during the winter, we don't water as much as we do during the summer because the plants grow slower. And so we just will take the water out of here and hand water the plants most of the time during winter. Over here is the kale. And like I mentioned, we will be harvesting all those carrots here probably this week, and then planting the artichoke in there. So we will be keeping this kale here for a bit. So I had to move one kale plant. These have been here all winter, and I just transplanted this one yesterday or the day before. So it's a little wilty, but it's actually looking much better than it did before. But these plants have just thrived all the way through the winter. So here, after this broadcast and the group leaves, I will be planting yellow. I'll be going over to a commercial grower and getting some yellow potatoes, and I'll be planting 10 feet of yellow potatoes here. And then on the other side of the artichoke, over there, I will be planting another 10 feet of yellow potatoes. Last year I planted red potatoes. This year I'm planting yellow potatoes. All right, so you see these marks here in the soil. This is a really fast, efficient way for me to mark where I need to plant. I know from the Midnight Gardening Course book, if I'm growing these plants vertically, that I want to plant them 9 inches apart. And so I have a device that I made, and there's a video on this in my YouTube channel at ldsprepper.com. And the design for this is in the Midnight Gardening Course book. And so on this side of the device, we have these half-inch dowels here, 6 inches apart, and on this side they're 7 inches apart. And so when I simply took this 8-foot long piece of 2x2, and with those dowels in there, I knew that I wanted to plant these 9 inches apart. So I just laid it before the pipe was in here. I just laid it the points over here and just drug it all the way across. So this is 6 inches right here. So I planted the first plant here and the second plant in between. So it's on the mark, in between the mark, on the mark, in between the mark for vertically growing plants. If you have plants that need to be 14 inches apart, or plants that, so that's when you would use the 7-inch side, or 21 inches apart. So the 6 and 7-inch marks work really well. So very quick way to plant everything, to mark it, and then to plant. So you just point it and you just drag it across, and it makes it very easy. So I will usually just make a mark here, and then I'll just make a mark here just as I'm growing. Now when I'm planting or transplanting, I'm actually working on the opposite side of the box. So I can just reach in here, make a hole. Here's my wire to hold my vertically growing twine. I'll have my plant in one hand. I'll just reach in here, pull the soil out, drop the transplant in there, push the soil back, pack it around the plant, so that we have good contact with the soil and the roots, so we don't have air pockets. And then after I have the row planted, I will take some nitrogen and side dress it to sprinkle a little bit of nitrogen across the plants, and that will keep them nice and healthy. So these plants were planted 2 days ago, transplanted 2 days ago, and you can see there's literally no transplant shock in these plants at all. So I also took the time to untangle the roots. These were purchased at a local nursery, and so I untangled all the roots, because they were in the shape of the container that they were in, and spread the roots out nice and big, because they were root bound inside of the container. And then that obviously has worked very, very well. Literally no signs of transplant shock in any of these plants. So it's important if you're buying, and we were at the nursery. We were the only people, literally the only people in the nursery, because we're way ahead of when people would normally be planting here. We're more than a month ahead, I believe. I'm not sure. The people plant in end of May. So we're at the beginning of April. Yeah, first week in April. And so we're way ahead. But even then, these plants were root bound inside the pots. So I very carefully just kind of massaged the root ball and get it nice and loose. We were able to spread out the roots in a nice big hole, put them in here, and they are doing fantastically well. So that is that. How I fill these boxes, you see that all these boxes are full. This is a 100% sand and sawdust. So they were probably a half or 3/4 of the way full from last planting. So I didn't see that they needed any more organic material, non-organic material. They didn't need any more sand. They needed more organic material. They needed more sawdust. So I went and got my sawdust. Now, all winter, while people are staying warm inside their homes, I'm going around and picking up bags of sawdust over at cabinet shops. And so when spring comes, I already have all the sawdust I need for the coming year. I don't have any extra sawdust. People always say, "Hey, David, do you have extra sawdust?" Nope. I don't have any extra sawdust. I just have sawdust I haven't used. It's like people, David, do you have any extra food? Nope, I don't have any extra food. I only have food that I haven't eaten yet. So anyway, so I mixed the sand and sawdust together. I just actually just put the sawdust inside the box and then used the mantis tiller to till it. I had some leftover sand and sawdust mix, so I just keep it here in the wheelbarrow because, as I mentioned, like last thing was that I have a sawdust already packaged, and I just put that in on top of the soil that was already inside the box. Before I put the sawdust in, this is critical, absolutely critical to get the results that I get. People say, well, I want to get the same results you get. Well, then you got to do the same thing that I do. The first thing I did, and you can see that we just keep these here right in the greenhouse, is I put my pre-plant mix into the greenhouse. Now, I have written on here 21:4. That's the ratio. That's not nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. This is primarily calcium. This is, for where we live, it's gypsum. And this recipe in here, which promotes root growth. So when you're transplanting plants or when the seeds are germinating, it has lots of the calcium in the soil, which promote root growth. So this has calcium and boron and magnesium. And I put that all the way down the box, in the box. And then I took the weekly feed that I have mixed up here. I have the LDS Pepper Premium Micronutrients in here, which is the molybdenum, the manganese, the copper, the zinc, all the other micronutrients. And then what you're seeing here, the larger particles are the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So I mix that together. And as you can see, I have my container marked, so I know exactly how much of the plant food I need to put in weekly. I just scooped this up, filled it up to that mark, and you see how fast that is. Don't have to wait every time. I'm not under fertilizing or over fertilizing. And then I sprinkled that all the way down the box. Then I put the sawdust on top, and then I tilled it all in. So that has worked really well. That's how I prepared the soil for screeding, right? So I really like the gas-powered the greenhouse because it's like I'm losing the feed. But I would like to show you was the strawberries. These strawberries, we're already eating strawberries here in the first fall. And these are doing wonderful. These are the seascapes. This first 15 foot here have been here for 6 years. This last fall, we went through, removed all the strawberries, of them, I think. But already full of strawberries. Just gorgeous, gorgeous strawberries. We've got some strawberries on the counter in the kitchen right now. This is some yesterday. So what I'm noticing is that these newer plants have fewer but much larger strawberries than the older plants. So these were not runners. She just kind of broke off the crowns from plants that had multiple crowns. And then you can see a difference here from these strawberries, and you'll notice that they have a lot of strawberries. Now these are considerably smaller than the other strawberries, a lot smaller. So we'll see how big they get, but we will be at the end of this season taking these out, doing the same thing that we did with the other strawberries. And we feed these plants the weekly plant feed also, but we feed them half as much because we found that they don't want as much. They get burned from the fertilizer, so they don't need as much nutrients, but they are doing extremely well. So we've got my wife's workstation over here. Last year she was doing the gardening. This year I'm doing the gardening, but she does her herbs, and so she overwintered her herbs here in the greenhouse. I don't know what this is, but it's all these are different herbs over here. She said, I think this is jasmine or something. I think some kind of a flower. And then you see that we have fans here because we can't roll up the sides in this greenhouse. It gets really hot in the summer, so we have fans blowing. She's got some basil she's going to transplant next to her garlic. And then she has a bunch more herbs that we picked up at the local nursery. And then here, she's got some herbs in the seedling tray here. She's got it covered with this material so as she waters that it doesn't disturb the seeds. And she's got sweet woodruff, dandelions, plantain, gumweed, all kinds of different other things here too. So I don't know about herbs. She does have her entire herb garden out here. And so she's just getting this ready for spring planting. And some plants overwinter, most don't. So the ones that aren't perennials, she'll overwinter in the greenhouse. She's got some more boxes here. I'm not sure what she's got in these boxes up here in front. That's our solar, and then that's our firewood that we store up for the winter. And she has her YouTube channel called the Backyard Herbalist, and she also has a website, the Backyard Herbalist School or something like that. All right, so this is our backyard. There's the hole for the trampoline. We take that out during the winter so it doesn't get ruined by the weather and the snow. And then we've got the chickens out there. It's really, really windy. You can see we've got tarps there, and that's there for a wind block because it's so windy. I mean, we had 70-mile-an-hour winds here last week, and we're supposed to have 30 to 50-mile-an-hour winds here today. This is my net meter, and the cool thing about it is that it is going backwards. I don't know if you can see it, but if you look at the arrows down the bottom left, it's going from right to left, and it's going very quickly. That means that we are selling power back to the grid. So pretty cool. Pretty excited about that. We started out with 5K in solar, and then we tripled it to now we have 16K because we've tripled our consumption here on the property as we've been expanding the property. All right, so that is the tour. I hope that's been interesting to you. I don't see any questions here. Let me see. Doesn't look like any questions. I don't see any questions here. So that's just kind of an update. Oh, here we have some. It just says, hello. Do you have to propagate the tomatoes with a paintbrush? Oh, good question. It's a different answer whether you're growing in a greenhouse or not. In a greenhouse, there's a lot of humidity. That's why we have the dehumidifier in there. And so it can get so humid that the pollen actually doesn't drop. Now, to answer your question, I never use a toothbrush, even in the greenhouse. And I do help pollinate the squashes, not really so much the tomatoes. But the tomatoes are what's called an A house. They don't need to have two different plants. There isn't a male tomato plant and a female plant. It's a single plant. But the pollen needs to drop in the flower in order to pollinate the fruit. So I don't grow bush tomatoes. I don't like growing bush plants of anything really. I prefer growing vertical. I get 3 times the harvest in the same space, and I can stand up and garden. So those tomatoes are all growing up the baler twine. And so what I do is I just come by the baler twine because I'm in the garden every morning. I just kind of tap the baler twine like this, which causes a little vibration, and then that will help the pollen fall. Outside, where the wind's blowing and it's drier, you could do the same thing, but probably not needed. So because it's not as humid and the pollen doesn't stick. Okay, how do you protect from pests? That's a great question. The most important thing to do to protect from pests is to have a healthy garden. Don't have the plant leaves on the ground. Harvest the plants at the peak and don't let them go to seed because then they're weak and they're susceptible and the insects come in. Extremely important is making sure that the plants have the proper nutrients. That's the number one factor in keeping the insects away from the plant. Now, we have all experienced people that are vibrant and healthy and active, and there's a certain amount of energy around that person. And that attracts other people who are like that, or people who want to be like that. And then we have people who are negative or depressed, and there's a whole different energy, and people say you're sucking the energy out of the air. Well, actually, that's the same. That's a really true concept. We are beings of energy. Everything is run by energy. And so when a plant is weak because it's malnutritioned, it's underwatered, it's hasn't been cared for properly, doesn't have enough light, so it's stressed, then that actually changes the energy from that plant, and it attracts the insects that are designed by God to come and get rid of the weak and dying plants, to clean up the mess. So if you want to maintain good control of your pests, first of all, have a healthy garden, have healthy plants. So grab yourself some LDS Prepper Premium Micronutrient Mix. Mix this up with the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium as instructed here on the sheet. Use this as it shows here for all your flowers, for your fruit trees, your ornamentals, for your vegetables. Everything that you want to be healthy that has roots will benefit from the plant food that you make from this micronutrient mix. Again, you can get this at ldsprepperstore.com. Now, in addition to that, you also want to mix up the pre-plant mix. That recipe is in the LDS Prepper, the Midnight Gardening course book. But then, just like all of us and our children, you may have one child that needs more nutrients and another child that needs something else. Or we all know that when women are pregnant, they need more iron than when they're not pregnant. And so if they don't get those minerals and those nutrients, they will get sick. And plants do the same thing. So one of the things I use the most in here in this Midnight Gardening course book is page 164, which is about how do I determine what is causing my plant to be sick. Okay, and it's all about nutrition, and it talks about the 16 essential nutrients that plants need. Not only does it talk about them, but then it tells you all of the symptoms. Here you can see for the nitrogen deficiency, it gives you an example of what a deficiency of nitrogen looks like on your plant, and then also how to care for it. So that's starting on page 164. It covers nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, which are the major nutrients, the ones that the plant needs the most of. And it goes into calcium, magnesium, boron, iron, molybdenum, sulfur, manganese, copper, zinc, and chlorine. And it will tell you exactly what the plant looks like when it has a lack of this nutrient and how much of this nutrient to feed it. So you literally are becoming a plant doctor, and all the information is in this $25 book. It is the best gardening book you'll ever find. You can get them over at ldsprepperstore.com. Get yourself, if you order 8 micronutrient packages, because you're not just buying micronutrients for this year, you're buying it for next year too, so you're prepared for next year. You get 8 of these packages, you get free shipping, So go ahead and buy a book at the same time, and you'll get the book shipped for free also. So to make sure that you have a healthy garden, make sure you're feeding it properly. The next thing is on the insects is make sure the plant isn't touching, the leaves aren't touching the soil, so they're not creating a little highway for the plants for the insects to get up and down the plants. I've seen that where plants in the garden have leaves touching the soil, and we've got ants and insects running up and down the plants. I used to remove the leaves that are touching the soil, and for some reason that dramatically decreases the number of insects problems that I have. Make sure that the plants aren't stressed. Make sure that you're watering them during the summer when it gets really hot and the plants are in full production. I'm watering more often depending on what the plants are showing me. So if I come out to the garden and I see that the plants are wilting at 1 o'clock, I'll set a timer on my automatic watering system so the water comes on at noon so that they're watered and refreshed before they get stressed. So in the winter where I'm watering maybe 2 minutes every 2 or 3 days, in the summer I may be watering 2 minutes every 2 or 3 times a day. So you just look at what the plants are doing, and they will tell you what they need simply by understanding what they're telling you. And the way that you understand that, the way I've learned this, is through the Mid-Atlantic Gardening Course book. Okay, hopefully that answers your question. Now, for example, you'll get sow bugs, you'll get grasshoppers, you may get those kind of things. And those are just destructive insects by themselves, and so you need to handle them. So for any kind of a crustacean, external hard-shelled insect, I use diatomaceous earth. I just sprinkle it on the plants, and that takes care of the plants, of the grasshoppers and the other hard shelled insects. Sounds like my cat wants to get on camera here. Hey, kitty. For aphids, it's you could use neem oil. Usually I don't have aphid problems unless there's a plant problem. If you see a lot of ladybugs in your garden, it's a bad sign that your plants are stressed and it's attracting aphids, because ladybugs are carnivorous and they're there to eat the aphids. So take a look at your plant health. Probably need to feed your plants. Now I have people who buy the LDS Pepper Premium Micronutrient Mix, and they mix the plant food together, and they'll feed their plants once during the season, and they say, oh, I had a terrible harvest and the plants were looking bad. Well, we use it once a week, especially during that's how it's designed to do it. We don't over fertilize and cause a salinity problem by using manure where it actually sucks the water, the moisture out of the plants. We give the plants exactly what they need every week, so you need to use it weekly if you want to have the good results. Okay, so let's see what else we have here. Any tips in protecting strawberries from pests from the UK? So the UK is a lot like the weather we had in Washington State. I think we're actually on the same latitude, longitude line. And so it was a lot of bright cloudiness days, high moisture. So we had slugs. So we would have, I think my wife had a mix for slugs. Instead of putting out slug poison, which the animals can eat, she, I think, put out beer or something like that, which drowned the slugs. Again, use diatomaceous earth for any insects that you have. There is actually in this book, it lists specific types of insects and exactly how to treat for those insects. I mean, this book really is everything you need to know about gardening. And let me just find the section here. I'm in the construction part, but it's how to protect against insects. And right in here, it shows exactly what you need to do for the different kinds of insects and how you can do it naturally using organic materials, and how you can use other methods, proper gardening and so forth, to keep those, to dissuade the insects from even coming into the garden. So lots of information in the book. It's really the only gardening book that we have anymore. It honestly is. My wife is a certified master gardener, and when we moved from Texas, she had literally over $1,000 worth of gardening books, and we donated them all to Goodwill, except for the Mid-Atlantic Gardening Course book. It's that good. It is in its 5th printing right now, and so we have 5th edition. So if you don't have the most current one, go to LDS Prepper Store and get your book there. All right, I think from what I can tell, that's everything. All the questions here. Protect pests, thank you, always. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for coming this morning. If you have other gardening questions or greenhouse questions, put them down below. I'll take a look at those so that I can review those for future broadcasts. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. Appreciate that. That helps the algorithms and YouTube share it with other people. Feel free to click the share button and share this video and other videos on Facebook and other social media platforms that you have, so people can learn how to grow food as if their life depends on it. Thank you so much for subscribing and liking the videos and sharing them with others. This is LDS Prepper reminding you, if ye are prepared, ye shall not fear.